Hey everyone, Kyle and Pam here with Asset Hero Studios on behalf of Dynamite Inspections and Marketing. This is the next podcast episode, and today we're going to talk about inspections. And inspections right now are starting to shift, right? So we are in mid-August, with at the time of this video shoot, and make-ready season in terms of inspections is coming to a close. So we've been super focused on make-ready inspections.
And the volume.
The volume of it's just intense, right?
So my inspectors they're very tired.
Yeah. So, but now everyone's settling in, right? So now we shift focus to periodic inspections.
Mm-hmm.
This quarter is a general focus. So each quarter, each periodic inspection has a different focus, right? So this focus is general. And the reason Dynamite does general periodic inspections focus this time of year is because of the make-ready inspections. Mm-hmm. Because a make-ready inspection is a very detailed general inspection. It's a general overview of the property, but extremely detailed, right? It's the most detailed inspection that Dynamite offers. And
they incorporate marketing with that effort because
that's part of the move-in inspection.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I meant.
But yeah, it's all part of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
all part of the make-ready process. And but now that's at a close, there's obviously properties that tenants were not moving out of,
mm-hmm.
right? So it's those properties that are now the focus for the remaining of this quarter. So the focus is to find determine the properties that tenants have not moved out and they renewed their lease, and do a general inspection of the property. Now, keep in mind, it's not as detailed as a make-ready inspection because the tenants have not moved out. But it's still a general overview. And typically, in those general overview inspections, the inspectors are looking out for Texas Property Code items. So what does that mean? Well, Texas Property Code Section 92 is about this thick if you printed it out. So it's impossible to know all aspects of what's in it and what is a requirement. However, the main items to look at are locks, right? So you got to think health and safety of the tenant, right? Locks on exterior doors. You have to have a deadbolt and a privacy lock on an exterior door, including a peephole if there's no window on the door or within 4 feet of it. So that you got to think of it as a safety concern from that, right? So you got to make sure the door's locked, make sure they actively work. You have the privacy lock and the peephole if you need it. Smoke alarms, they can't be older than 10 years old. That's a violation of Texas Property Code. So that's a major risk. That's a health and safety risk of the tenant. Let's say there is a fire, mm-hmm. and the smoke alarms in the unit are 20 years old, and they don't function. You don't even know that they don't function. And the house burns down and burns all the stuff down to the ground. Can you see what kind of liability the owner would have at that point?
That, and also people don't like it beeping when the battery runs out, so they yank it down. So it's like sometimes it's just hanging.
There's just wires hanging out from the ceiling. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that. Verifying that the age of the smoke alarm is, make sure the windows lock, right? It's just stuff like that. So we have there's a list. There's a list that they look at when it comes to general. And then also you're looking at, these are tenant occupied homes that have renewed, right? Mm-hmm. So verifying, there's that ambulance in the background, just ignore it. But verifying that there's no tenant negligence and making sure the properties, and not just that, but making sure the property doesn't need any preventative maintenance. Providing suggestions,
mm-hmm.
Say, hey, what would really help the curb appeal of this property? Making a little flower bed here, or remulching, or something, anything. Mm-hmm. Making those suggestions, not necessarily things that are a requirement like Texas Property Code, is also important, so that the owner can know what they could do in their budget, if anything, and know what is being suggested as a good service. So.
Right, and don't they do use that time too to educate the tenants if they're present, or we can relay that information if there's something happening to the walls, or just educating them on this will be a tenant expense when you move out.
Right. So like, hey, make sure when you're putting stuff on the walls, use command strips, because if you use command strips when you move, taking the command strip off properly will not leave the wall damaged, right? So whereas if you put a big old screw in the wall or in the stud or hanging a TV, things like hanging a TV you can't really avoid. You can't put command strips to hang a TV, but stuff like that, making sure that on those things, you just want to make sure that the wall is repaired to its previous condition, right? And so stuff like that.
Right, and a lot of times they catch stuff. Like a lot of people put those strings of Christmas lights all along the top part of the wall.
And they're not LEDs.
And they're not LEDs, and what happens?
It burns the wall.
It puts burn marks. I mean, you could have a fire, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
But also that's damage on all the walls.
Right, so educating the tenants on that, say if they notice that, say, hey, just so you know, you're going to have some burn marks on the wall, make sure that gets taken care of. And, just things like the educating the tenants. This is not just education for the homeowner, but it's education for the tenants as well. And providing that video documentation is extremely important for the protection of both the tenants and the owner.
Right.
So yeah, that's periodic inspections are the remaining of this general inspection, just an overview of as a whole. So that's the focus now. And like a make-ready inspection, typically you're looking at 30 to 45-minute video because it's so detailed, depending on the size of the unit. But like the periodic inspections, we really want to keep under 10 minutes because, for one, we are walking into someone's home, right? Whether they own, like the tenants don't own it, I get that, but that's still their home, right? We don't want to disrupt them. We want to disrupt them as little as possible, but also provide a quality service to the homeowner to make sure that they are maintaining the property and upholding the lease terms, but also making sure that tenants are protected as well.
Right. It's a very proactive approach to even the end result of say the tenants moving out. We've made them aware, we have educated them, they're prepared, they're not going to be shocked about, you mean I have to pay for those burn marks from the lights? They're made aware and they're
or
educated.
They fix it themselves.
Or they fix it, right.
Yeah, so it truly is protection for both tenants and owners, because if you have continuous video documentation throughout the year, then when the tenant moves out and does damage something, you have the documentation to show that it wasn't like that when they moved in. Or the other way around, where there was something missed when the tenant moves in, and we notated this, video documentation notate that this was prior, this was pre-existing. When the tenant moves out, now the tenant has documentation to prove that that was prior to them moving in and that they shouldn't be charged for it. That protects them, right? So it's a completely unbiased documentation of the property. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. It reminds me, it's the move-in orientation videos.
Yeah, move-in orientation. That's another thing that's happening quite a bit right now as well, because all the tenants are moving in, and that is for the tenants. That is their documentation, their assessment, their own opinion and assessment of the property.
And Dynamite has the inspectors with them in person.
Yes.
Walking through the property with them.
Yep. So to help alleviate concerns, show them how to submit the specific maintenance request with that specific management company, or landlord, and walking them through that process. So
right, it's an awesome process.
Yeah, we love it. So anyway, that's what Dynamite is working towards for the rest of this quarter. So we're super excited to see how that unfolds, and then we'll update the next quarter of what the next focus is going to be. So until next time, thanks guys.
Thanks.